The last thing we have to worry about is your process. All right, your process for this does not change. It does not change whatsoever. So step one, okay, step one is to define variables. Now they are always going to be X and Y. The easiest way to define your variables is to look at what it is talking about in the objective function or cost function. So when it's talking about that it costs $600 for truck A and $500 for truck B, that is an indicator to you that you need those values as X and Y. So whatever is mentioned in the objective function are your variables. You need to define them as X and Y so that you can graph them on your calculator. The next thing you need to do is you need to construct constraints. Okay? And what is meant by that is your inequality equations. So whether it be less than or equal to, less than, greater than, you need to make sure that you have the right inequality sign with your graph, okay? The other thing you need to assume, okay, and not forget to write, is if we're talking about real things, we need to know that Y is greater than 0 and X is greater than 0. So if we're talking about people, we can't have negative people. So when we have Y is greater than 0 and X is greater than 0, it moves it all up into the first quadrant of your Cartesian plane, assuming that all values up there are positive. The next thing you will need to do is graph your constraints. Okay, that is either on your calculator or by hand. If you are doing it by hand, on CAS or by hand, okay, if you're doing it by hand, graph them as a linear equation and test a point, okay? Graph as linear equation, then test point. When I'm saying test your point, okay, or graph as a linear equation, graph it simply as a line and then work out which side of the line you need to shade. Then you need to find your intersections. Now that is in your calculator page and it is menu, analyze, graph, intersections. And some of the graphs you will need to click on to make sure you have chosen the right graphs to find the intersection of. And then the last thing you will do is sub in intersections to your objective function. Now your objective function will have been found when you've made your constraints. And the last thing you must do, okay, if you do not do this, I'll be very disappointed. Write answer in sentence form. Okay, you must write it in a sentence form. You have to. There's no question about it. All right, and that will get you to where you need to be. All good.